Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition, episode 92 of the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast. Thank you for joining us on the audio side, on the YouTube side. If you are watching us, the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast page. Today, we're talking our main topic, blocking out distractions. Not an easy thing to do. And we're going to be talking about that today, how hitters at all levels can do just that, which is a little bit ironic because we were supposed to record this yesterday on a Saturday. I happen to have a little bit of a stomach bug. I was throwing up all morning. I was ready to power through, though, and do the episode. Ep was in the car with his family. He was going to record power through on his phone, but we decided we might be a little bit too distracted. So we decided to push it back a day. So please note the irony. Isn't it ironic?
You are really sharp. You're sharp already.
That is the voice for those not watching and listening on the audio side of the man himself. He looks like $1,000,000. He's in a fantastic mood. He told me before we were recording today. Professional evaluator, successful business owner, former coach, friend, and co-host. $1,000,000 smile, the great hair, Jake Epstein.
Man, it's like Ted DiBiase introduction right there, the $1,000,000 man.
We've talked on this show before about your wrestling references, and you have to remember you're a generation ahead of me. So your wrestlers are not my wrestlers.
Different wrestlers.
And a lot of the audience, actually a good portion of the audience would probably know who Ted DiBiase is. Some in the audience would also know who Bruno Sammartino, or what's his name? We know who he is.
I know who Ted DiBiase is.
That's it. Now, do you know who The Undertaker is? That was like my generation.
That was my nickname in college.
Why? Oh, because you're tall.
Because I was big.
Yeah. You look like $1,000,000 today, not $100,000,000. The amount of money plus that Trevor Story just got on a Sunday morning signing with the Red Sox. Interesting to know. We are doing him next week, our mechanical breakdown series, breaking down his swing, but he's moving over from shortstop to second base. Last year didn't have too good of a year. You like him a lot as a hitter, though, and he's now a Boston Red Sox.
I like him a lot as a shortstop, too.
Yeah.
I think the guy can play. You know, I also read that the Rockies offered him that or more to stay. And that just shows you what guys will do when they want to win and when they're treated poorly. And he was totally treated poorly at the end of last season when they didn't trade him. I still don't understand why they didn't trade Trevor Story at the end of the year to get a prospect or two when they knew he wasn't going to resign. Just mind-blowing to me. But anyway, hopefully he'll be in a good place, and we'll check out his swing because he moves the bat really well. His lower body is very, he's a big strider, always has been, but it's a very controlled big stride. So he'll be a fun guy to break down for sure.
I don't think you're ever going to be working for the Colorado Rockies anytime soon.
No,
you're not a fan of them. I don't.
No, I very much so like the Rockies.
I kid when I say that, of course. I say that in jest. I'm a little surprised he didn't stay with Colorado after Kris Bryant signed. And you've said on the show before about the Rockies maybe not always going all out to try and win. And correct me if I'm wrong, if I said that wrong. Please correct me. I don't want to misspeak here or misrepresent you. But they did sign Kris Bryant. Are you surprised by that? What was your first initial reaction to? Everybody says in the industry that the reaction was that of high surprise. What was your reaction when Kris Bryant was announced as the new Rockies third baseman? They went from Arenado, by the way, they traded 2 years ago to Kris Bryant.
I don't know. I was floored when I saw that there was mutual interest there. I didn't understand that move, not because I didn't think the Rockies would spend for someone or that Kris Bryant would come here. It just didn't seem like the fit. The Rockies have an interesting track record of where they'll blow out and get one guy, almost to keep a fan base intrigued that, they're still doing things. They did it with Ian Desmond, where they overpaid for Ian Desmond years ago. Like 4 years ago. I mean, that was the silliest, and they didn't even have a position for him. He was a shortstop his whole career, most of his career, and then they're like, I guess we'll make him, we don't have any spots in the outfield, so we'll make him a first baseman. And it was like, why did you give this guy all your payroll? Right. For one guy? And it's like they kind of did the same thing with Bryant. They're just, we got to land somebody so maybe the fans in Denver, have, they're going to be happy with something like that when maybe you sign 2 or 3 guys at that rate, that I don't know. I don't get it. I really don't get it. I don't get this. I think Story probably would have come back if there was just better communication. Now they do have a new general manager, right? So, Bill Schmidt's a great general. I mean, he has been around forever, and maybe now we're starting to see something different than when Bridich was here. Maybe there was a different philosophy in place with him or the management or the ownership, whatever it is. And now all of a sudden you got Schmidt in there, and it's like, okay, this is what we're going to do. And maybe the whole Trevor Story thing was just kind of a bummer, and Schmidt was kind of held like, I can't really do anything. That bridge was burned, last season. So I don't know if that's the case or not. I think if you had Story and you had Chris Bryant, now all of a sudden you're telling your fans and your team that you're ready to win, because they do have some younger guys, but they need some pitching. They always need pitching, and I think the fact that Chris Bryant came here, I just, the Rockies are in a really tough division. I mean, let's be serious here. You got, Freddie Freeman now with the Dodgers, that's just what they needed to put him over the edge, right? I mean, come on. Like, how many guys do you need, right? So you got the Dodgers, you got the Padres. Padres just picked up Luke Voigt, another bat to an amazing, huge roster and payroll that they have. And then you have the Giants that won the whole dang division last year with a small payroll. So now it's like the Rockies, getting one guy. It's going to take more than that. So it's interesting to me because it's like, maybe you rebuild or maybe you go for it. I don't understand kind of the middle of you trade guys. Maybe they just did that to trade, but I think he has no trade clause. Maybe they're trying to pull a page out of Billy Beane's book where, hey, let's grab this guy. If he goes out to Colorado and just starts killing it, he's got 30 home runs at the All-Star break. Maybe we can trade him and get a couple talented players for him.
Right.
But I'm sure he has an interesting trade clause. But you know what? Who wouldn't want to go to a winner? This team's 10 games under 500. All of a sudden, you can get traded to a winner. Maybe that's the strategy. I don't know. But that brings me back to the whole Trevor Story thing. Why don't you get prospects for Trevor Story? You weren't going to win that division last year. So
anyway, to your point too,
times.
Why wouldn't you try and bring him back? Because I value positions up the middle as much as the next guy. Why wouldn't you try to bring him back to shore up your position shortstop up the middle? That's a little confusing to me as well.
He's such a good. He's so fast too. I mean, the guy he really does everything. He does everything well. So.
And what's also, you made a great point in there as well about being in the middle ground. That's where I see the Rockies right now. They're in the middle ground, and that's not the place you want to be if you're in the National League West. The NL East has gotten very, very competitive. I could see obviously 3 teams, maybe 4, competing in that division. I don't care if there's somewhat of an expanded playoff. You can't be in a middle ground where the Rockies are if you play in a division with the Dodgers, who, I mean, look, if they don't win the World Series this year, it might be one of the most disappointing outcomes in history. And then, of course, the Giants, who seemingly after last year look like they're once again
moving the right direction,
playoff perennial team.
Yeah. And the Padres, who they have a new manager who's has a pretty good track record. And
of course, the Padres, right? I forgot about them. Yeah,
the Padres, and you got, now they did just lose Tatis, right? So that's 3 months with his, what was it, his elbow or hand?
It was his wrist. And by the way, I just want to I want to pat myself on the back here for just 1 second. I want to say that is why I said a long time ago I will take Bo Bichette at shortstop over Fernando Tatis Jr.
Because you won't ride motorcycles or what?
Nothing against his character, Fernando Tatis Jr., of course. But if you look at it from a scouting perspective, as you do, I think that you would probably take Bo over Fernando because of, let's just look at the evidence that's out there. Motorcycle accident, rides motorcycles. Okay, I get you want to have fun. There needs to be a little more responsibility in there, but the injuries. Can't play shortstop because of the shoulder. Couldn't last year. A lot of things have piled up with Fernando Tatis Jr. in the last 2 years that have made you scratch your head a little bit. But the talent is so supreme that, of course, you're not going to give up on him. You're just crossing your fingers, that hoping that he can stay healthy and not do something, I don't want to call it stupid, but silly, like continue to ride motorcycles and get into accidents.
Yeah. It's tough. You got all the talent in the world, but if you're not on the field, if you're injury prone, or you make poor decisions, you don't get to show that great ability as much as you'd like to. So
let me ask you a question. So just switching gears here, Carlos, I was thinking about this morning. Carlos Correa signed with the Minnesota Twins. I thought he got a great deal. It's, I think, what Bryce Harper should have done a few years ago, taken a 3-year deal, and would have gotten a lot of money up front. He took the 13-year deal, whatever, that works as well. I think Correa did it right. Then did his agent, Scott Boras, did a nice job in getting him a really good contract. But I was thinking about this with Correa, where he fits in the Twins lineup. They've got some pieces, but they also have some unknowns. We have a guy like Correa who's going to be your centerpiece in the infield, but also in the middle of your lineup. How would you go about constructing a lineup around Correa that makes him, maximizes his success, and also maximizes the success of the Twins in general? Evident, again, we don't have much evidence to go off of because we don't really know all the pieces that are there. We just know Correa's right there in the middle. So how would you formulate that lineup to get the most out of both parties?
You always have to have surrounding cast, and that's where, you got Chris Bryant, like here in Colorado, who's you got Charlie Blackmon, who's, kind of aging, and, you don't have that Story or Arenado or, guys that are really, there's McMahon's pretty good hitter, right? So you have to have that. I don't know a ton about the Twins, the Donaldson's not there anymore.
Yeah.
They have Sano that's there. I'm trying to think who their second baseman is. Kind of drawing a blank. They got Max Kepler, I think is a outfielder somewhere who can hit the ball pretty good. But like anything else, you have to put high. You have to get players to get on base above him, and you have to have protection behind him. So if he's going to be your guy, you got to have Sano hitting behind him. Somebody that's a threat to hit a ball out of the park where they can't pitch around Correa all the time. And then to maximize your Correa investment, there has to be people on base. So when, he hits his 300 and he hits his, 25 to 30 home runs, he's driving in 100 RBIs too. So, from a player perspective, that's kind of what you always want around your superstar is protection and then people that get on base. As far as, clubhouse, that's the other stuff you got to know. Who does he get along with? They had a pretty good thing in Houston. They had those guys, when Springer was there, especially, you could tell they just had a lot of energy and they got along well, and it was a good clubhouse. And so when you go someplace new, you don't know what that's going to be like. And maybe he has guys that he'll gel with, when he gets up there. But yeah, really cool deal that they did, because I don't know, it was really thought out well, because Correa's like, you know what, maybe I think he can get out at any time. Is that right?
After next year.
Okay. So after 2 years, he can get out. The Twins.
No, I'm sorry. After this season. Sorry. Excuse me.
Okay. After this season. So the Twins.
And maybe next season as well, because there's a couple of opt-outs in there.
Yeah. But it's like the Twins, there's no risk for the Twins. Hey, we're going to pay a ton of money for this guy for up to 3 years, and he'll be worth it for 3 years.
Right.
And then if we're not where he wants to be, he can leave and explore other options. And we have our number one or one of our top prospects. I don't know if Lewis is the shortstop of the future for them, but yeah, they have was he a 1-1 guy, or he was a top 5 pick, I think, a few years ago, Royce Lewis. And it's like, okay, like we're going to be competitive now,
right,
while we wait for this guy, but we're also not tied to this long-term deal. And maybe it costs us a couple $1 million extra each year. Who cares? And Correa is sitting there saying, I'm going to just keep doing what I do, and then I'm going to get another sweet deal after this, or maybe after 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, who knows?
Sure. Well, we did a mechanical breakdown series on Chris Bryant, on Carlos Correa. We're doing one on Trevor Story next week. We also did one on Kyle Schwarber and Nicholas Castellanos. Nick Castellanos now, of course, both those guys with the Phillies. So go back in our archives, go watch it on YouTube, the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast YouTube page, and of course, listen on the audio side as well. We do have a question here, and it comes to us from JJ, a follow-up question, of course, from JJ from a couple of weeks ago, sent to us via jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. JJ writes, Jim and Jake, it's been on my mind for some time after hearing Jim rant/whine about the use of big terms. I don't whine, by the way. I don't whine, JJ.
Maybe you piss and moan.
No, I don't piss and moan either. It's been on my mind for some time. Again, more irony in the show, because it seems like JJ's sort of ranting and whining in this email. It's been on my mind for some time after hearing Jim rant/whine about the use of big terms by wannabe hitting instructors. Jake, you too have been critical of term dropping, but you've been less I can't read that word. It's a good word, JJ. I can't read it. I don't want to say it wrong either. I don't know how to say it. He's going to email us now and give me the correct.
You're toasted.
Yeah, I'm done. Anyway, I'm sure, Jake, that you've heard your father say something along the lines of what he wrote in his articles in Collegiate Baseball News and later in his book, Mike Epstein on Hitting. And this is in quotes: what you as an instructor have to know to teach your students don't have to know to learn. Interesting. Yet it was Mike Epstein over 20 years ago who was one of the first to throw out the terminology that rattled the cage of the baseball ecosystem at the time. It is by no means a criticism, for I am forever grateful that he did. It was the terms he used that explained the science behind the swing. It was Mike who put the science, in quotes, air quotes again, in Ted Williams' The Science of Hitting. Mike's efforts allowed those so inclined to refute all of the crap being taught out there at the time. And there was a lot of crap out there at the time. I'll save those for next week. So we've got another one coming from JJ. That is from JJ, of course, loyal listener, sent to us via jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. A lot of topics we're going to cover, by the way, in episode 100 plus from what was in the book written by you and your father. Go ahead.
No, it's what makes a good coach or teacher is somebody that can take the complex and make it simple or make it usable to other people. And probably the best compliment I've ever had was just that. So you're able to communicate the information that everybody sees, and you could actually get a player to do it instead of saying, hey, your left elbow is wrong, or your right elbow is wrong, or your scap is blah, 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 blah. You can find a way to do it. I remember my dad saying, I mean, back when JJ is talking about this, right? The early 2000s or maybe 2000, he had 3 drills.
Yeah.
That's it. And he used to say, if you have, 100 drills, then you can't teach. You're using drills to teach. You have to be able to communicate with certain drills that you like and you trust to get players to do, that move. So, my dad has said he used the word torque, and people didn't really know that, what that was. It has become a kinematic movement.
Right.
Lately, where everybody talks about, a lot of, scientific words, and that's great. Like, if you know them and what they mean, but you're going to confuse a 10 or 12-year-old. You can't talk about that. But if you try to use big words to make yourself sound smarter than other people, like, there's a lot of people that are smarter than me. In fact, the majority of people walking on this planet are likely smarter than me.
I don't know. You know what? Shomo disagrees. She says you're one of the smartest people she's ever met, and she said that seriously. And I agreed.
Okay, well, there's smart, and then there's someone that's good at what they do, and someone that can relate to people. And that's what I pride myself on, being able to talk to a 9-year-old and get them to do what I'm asking them to do. And I may have to use totally different words that I've never used before, teaching someone else. But, getting that finished product, or having a 25-year-old, that comes in. I've had professional players that come in spewing all this, blah, this and that, and I got to do this and load this and hit this flexor like, okay, if you do this, what did that make you feel like? And they're like, yeah, that's what I'm trying to feel. And I was like, buddy, all I told you to do was have your stride take 3 seconds. And they're like, wow. I was like, did you load your back hip? Yes. Were you pronated on your back foot? Yes. Was your knee in the yes. What did I tell you to do? You told me to take my stride for 3 seconds and see if I could balance and hold it without totally stopping. Okay, well, that moved. So I could have said, oh, I need you 50,000 words later, what to do. So that's what makes a good coach and a good instructor. In terms of mechanics, I mean, there's a lot that goes through the mental side of hitting it at different levels. But yeah, you don't have to be you don't have to show off by using a big vocabulary. You show off by the kind of person you are and the kind of work that you do in your industry. I don't care what industry that is.
So I was watching, and I'm looking it up now. I don't know who the Mets hitting coach is this year. I'm trying to Google it, but my phone is
Chavez
acting up. Eric Chavez.
Eric Chavez.
Right. You played with him in college, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. High school. Grew up with him.
Oh, in high school. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching a little bit of the Mets, one of their spring training games, and they got on the topic of Michael Conforto, who's still out there, by the way, as a free agent. And they were just, they were talking about how he may be brought back and how he had so many voices in his ear last year when he was struggling, and he had so many hitting coaches, Chili Davis, this guy,
mm-hmm.
and they finally brought it around to the broadcasters, brought it around to the point about and mentioned Eric Chavez in that he is telling a lot of guys now, because analytics and the people associated with analytics used to actually be in the room, apparently, with the Mets hitters and their hitters meetings. And Eric Chavez has started to tell his guys, let's get back to seeing the ball and hitting the ball. So it goes to your point in forgetting some of this scientific stuff for a second and making it as simple as possible. And that's the power, too, of a former player being in that type of position.
Yeah, and Eric was such a field player his whole life. I mean, I've known him since he was, I think we started playing together when we were 13, and he was just what an amazing. I mean, what he did with a bat was unbelievable. Like if we needed a hit, it didn't have to be a strike; it'd be over his head, and he'd get a hit somewhere. It'd be 8 inches outside, he'd get a hit somewhere. He could do it, and it wasn't like he was more physical than anyone else. He wasn't a 210-pound freshman in high school or sophomore high school, or even junior in high school, probably. Like he wasn't ripped. He wasn't where he just could hit, and he just found the barrel all the time. And, my dad, did our 3 drills. My dad was our coach, when we were, 13, 14, 16. And, we did our drills before the games, and he would talk to us about, pitches to look for. But, Eric was just such a natural athlete. And yes, I've actually had conversations with him recently, and it's just too much. Like there's so much information, and that's probably why they gave him the job, because the Mets were a very high analytical. They've invested a lot of money in analytics. So, to have somebody, to trust somebody for Showalter, to trust somebody like Eric to come in and say, look, man, we need to just this wave pool is going crazy. We need to settle this thing down and filter that amount of information that comes in. I think it sounds like that's what they're doing. Yeah. And yeah, Eric is more of a, hey, I'm going to talk you through your at-bats on what you need to look for, what the pitcher's getting over, which is very, very important compared to, having a lot of data in there about, what this pitcher has done the past 30 days. Well, I don't care what he's done the last 30 days. What is he doing right now?
Right.
We don't have data on what he's doing right now. Is his ball jumping out of his hand, or is he 4 inches slower with his fastball today, or is he a little bit quicker today? Is he quicker to the plate? Is he doing more slide steps? I mean, there's so many variables that happen on the spot in baseball, because pitchers have feel too, and pitchers have reports too on what they're trying to do. So I think that's what he's probably trying to get back to it. Hey, let's be in the moment here and not put all our eggs in the basket of, what this pitcher has done over the last couple of weeks or couple months.
I still, and I could be completely off base here, but I'm still under the belief. And by the way, thank you to JJ. Email us, anybody out there with your questions, jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. I'm still under the belief, though, that analytics, if it supplements pitchers, it actually helps them more than it would a hitter, because hitting a baseball, No disrespect to pitchers. They're in control of the game, but it's the hardest thing to do in baseball, hitting a baseball, and the hardest thing to do in all of sports. And if you have all this analytical information, all these things inside of your head as you're trying to hit a baseball in what is an era where we are seeing some of the best pitching of all time, you know what? You're going to get to a point where you just kind of have to start to go the other way. And that's what the Mets have done. Did it at the managerial position with Buck Showalter, and of course now with Chavez as well.
Yep. That's exactly what they've done. And they still have a huge analytics department, but
right.
It's going to be processed, I think, a little different. Yeah, last year they had Chili, but Chili's hands were tied a lot. From what I've read, obviously I was not there in that clubhouse, but his hands were tied with all the information that came in, and then they fired him, in the middle of the season, and they brought these other two guys in, I believe, from the minor league system, and they were very data oriented and analytical, and then that didn't work, and so they blamed everybody. Poor hitting coaches, everybody got blamed, and I think they just wanted a fresh start.
Yeah. I'll see how it works out. That National League East is going to be pretty good this year. The Mets probably have the best pitching rotation.
I can't imagine. There was a lot of bad blood with Conforto, and isn't Boras his agent, and the Mets.
Yeah.
Early in the offseason. So if he goes back there, that'll be really interesting.
Well, but Conforto, remember, he was offered a deal 100+ million last year and decided to turn it down. So that's on him as well. Well, the National League East, though, like I said, is going to be very interesting, competitive. Mets probably have the best pitching staff in the East. Phillies got better. And of course, the Braves, reigning World Series champs, got Matt Olson. It's going to be a lot of fun. All Eastern divisions this year are going to be a lot of fun. It's probably going to be a 2-way, 3-way race, probably in the National League West. And we'll see. Anything goes, I guess, in the Central. I still got the Cardinals because they're just perennial winners. Let's get into today's topic, though, blocking out distractions for offensive players.
You should have the Brewers. That's who you should have, but that's all right. We can talk about that.
You know what? Let me tell you, I was looking at, I apologize for that. I was looking at some projections, though, yesterday. The Brewers, according to Fangraphs, I think they have like a 78% chance to make the postseason. So my apologies to everybody.
The Brewers win, man. Brewers are smart. They may not go after crazy, $140 million talent all the time, but get it done.
They get it done.
Good pitching, play good defense. They're going to hit. They're going to have some timely hitting. Okay. If you ever mention the Cardinals again, it's the end of the show.
All right. Sorry.
Just kidding.
Ep's in a great mood today, everybody. I don't know if you've noticed that.
I'm excited. McCutcheon's a Brewer, man. That guy's awesome. He's, twilight of the career, but he's exciting. I like McCutcheon.
He's a good player. Good. He's had a very nice career. Blocking out distractions. That's our topic today. Blocking out distractions, episode 92 of the Lab Epstein Hitting podcast. Follow us on social media at Jim Tara, at Epstein Hitting. Blocking out distractions. There's a lot nowadays. Weren't as many when even I was playing, but when you were playing too professionally, you have social media, have all this stuff going on. And we kind of alluded to it earlier with the Mets, a lot of distractions offensively in that hitting room and a lot of stuff being thrown at hitters. How do you go about, what are the first steps, broad question, but the first steps, taking baby steps in blocking out distractions as an offensive player on a daily basis?
You have to be you. You have to be confident in you. If you don't have confidence in yourself, then those distractions will penetrate. They're gonna get into your armor, if you will. So you have to be self-confident, and you can't worry about things that are out of your control. You can't worry if you're a AA player and they bring somebody up. Like, there's nothing you did, right? That's somebody else made that decision. What you can do is go about your business of how you do your work every day and how you prepare and how you eat and how you sleep, how you work out, and you get better each and every day. So if you have a strong kind of internal confidence of what you can do, distractions are much less likely to infiltrate, to get in your head. If you aren't sure about how good you are or how confident you are, did we prepare? Mm-hmm. Did we put in the time? What's the reason you aren't confident in yourself? What is that self-doubt? Is it, because maybe you should have, studied for your test a little bit, sooner in the week rather than the night before, whatever it is, like, maybe we should have hit that day, maybe we should have, had a different plan of our throwing routine, or maybe we shouldn't have gone out the night before and had a few too many. So there's a lot of excuses that we can make. These are professionals. Like, these are professional. Have you ever watched a fighter prepare for a fight, whether it's a boxing match or MMA? I mean, that's how you get it done. They isolate themselves, right, from everyone, from family, from friends, from a normal day-to-day operation. They go to a separate gym. They stay in a different apartment, and they are 100% focused during their training. Great athletes do the same thing. Football players will do the same thing. Baseball players will do the same thing. And sometimes, sometimes it's extreme. Don't get me wrong. You have to be a real person. But when outside influences can distract you, maybe it's the people around you, maybe it's your teammates, right. And that's where, as a college coach or a high school coach or a professional coach, major league coach, not as much in the minor leagues, but if you don't have a good team, you might not have all the talent you need, but if you have a team that believes in themselves, and they believe in one another and they work together as a unit, then you're going to do wonderful things.
Yeah.
But if you have guys that are petty and undercutting each other in clubhouse, it doesn't matter how good your team is. So, those distractions can come from your teammates. They could come from your roommate, who maybe he's a smart guy, and he doesn't have to study very much, but he gets good grades. He's going to go to law school when he's done playing. And then there's you, who you don't know what you want to do, but you want to be a baseball player or a softball player.
Right.
You want to play as long as you can. Well, that guy's going to have different goals than you have. He's the second string, maybe he's the fourth or fifth outfielder, and you're the starting third baseman, and you have different goals. So you want to surround yourself by people that are positive and kind of moving that ship in the right direction.
Let me just ask you this, because you're talking now about roommates, and that brings us to the college side of things. There's going to be natural. You can't. It's hard as a professional athlete. As a college athlete, to relate to a professional athlete when you're isolating yourself as a professional athlete. College kids, they just can't do that. They just don't have the means to do that. They can't do that. They have classes. They've got girlfriends. They've got this. They've got that. How do they take all of that? They could have girlfriend problems. How do they alleviate those type of pressures to be able to perform on the field and give their teams 4 good at bats and plate appearances every game?
Yeah. So we used to talk about, just when you step in that door, everything else is gone. No matter what you're going through in life, whether you step on the grass or the turf, but it starts before then. So we would say, when you walk in that facility, you're in another world. You leave all that stuff behind. Did you get a bad grade on a test? You're worried, gosh, am I going to be ineligible? Like, did that put me over the edge? I'm going to have to talk to my professors tomorrow morning. You can't think about any of that. Like, you deal with that the next morning or that night. When you step in there, you have one thing on your mind, and that's to be the best version of you to help your team win. So that's what it is. You have to have that barrier, and it goes the other way. So when you leave the complex or you leave the facility, whether you're a coach or a player, you leave it all there. So if you went out and you had a bad day, you booted a ball, you popped up with a runner on third, less than 2 outs, with the infield back, or whatever it was, you had a bad day. When you open that door to leave the complex to go to your car, it's gone.
Right.
It is totally done. It has no impact on anything else. It has no impact on, if you're going to spend time with your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your husband or your wife or whoever it is, nothing. You have to put that aside, because it goes both ways. Like, your playing career can ruin your family life and your friend life, and vice versa. If you have, a bad stuff going on with your family, it could take away from your performance, when you're on the field. So setting up barriers is I think, really, really important. Sometimes having a coach you can trust and you can lean on about things like that. I always was that guy, like, hey, you got a problem? I'm a steel trap. Like, you could tell me a secret and it's not going anywhere. Like, I've been like that my whole life. So
Mhm.
if I had a point, hey, you got a problem, you need to get it out, like I'm there for you. If you don't want to tell me, that's cool too. Let me find someone you can talk to, if you're having troubles. But when you're in here and you're in this cage and I can see that your brain isn't in the right spot, then you got to do something about that.
How do you see that as a coach? Interesting point you made there. How do you see that the brain's not in the right spot? What body language are you looking for?
It's typically when you're communicating. So,
Mhm.
you'll see a player come in and do their work and they'll be off, right?
Yeah.
Like there's something, their swing is off, and you're talking to them and it's a different look in their eyes. They're not looking at you like, okay, I got this. They're looking at you like, I'm thinking about something else,
Sure.
like just let's work on curveballs now. Like that's what they're thinking in their head versus, hey, what is the problem? Like, what am I doing wrong here? Am I getting going late, or my hands too low at launch, or what's the deal? It's just it's not a normal relationship. You have relationships with your players, right? You kind of know everybody's personality. And then when that personality is totally different, is kind of when you notice it. It's like, hey man, what's going on? Like, what's something eating at you? What might it be? And let's get out of the cage. Let's go, let's go get something to drink. Let's go get a granola bar or something, and figure out what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But those distractions, now at the younger levels, right? The distractions are everywhere, right? You got mom, you got dad, you got kids that instead of looking at their coach, they look in the stands at their parents, oh geez, I hope I didn't, let my dad down or my mom down. That stuff has to be learned. That is, coaching them up. Hey guys, we're staying right here between, the field. Like, don't worry about what's in the background. Don't worry about who's making noise. Don't worry about those crazy Mississippi State fans, shaking their cowbells all the time, right? Like that's going to be there. And so that has to be learned. Like that's just a very common, kids are always worried about what other people think of them. So we do fun drills at the lab with the young kids where we try to essentially rattle them. Yeah. So we have an eye-hand coordination station that we have players, and we're working on processing, like how fast do our eyes see a color, and then that information goes back to our brain, and then from our brain it goes to our hand to hit that color, right? How quickly can we do that in a half second or a third of a second? Can we make those decisions? Mm-hmm. So we do a lot of those, and players get really good at it. After a couple times, they figure it out, and it's like a 30-second game, and there's 4 lights that pop up. Only one light is the hot color, so you got to hit the hot color, right? So they'll do that, and they'll get, say they get 50, right? That's a good number. They get 50 in 30 seconds, and they're feeling pretty good, and then we'll have to do it again. Maybe they get 54. Then the third time, I'll stand behind them, and I'll say a color. Mm-hmm. One of the 4 colors. Mm-hmm. So, but it won't be the color they're supposed to hit. They're supposed to hit blue. I'll say green, yellow, and I'll say it very nice. And all of a sudden you'll see them freak out because instead of them just concentrating on the task at hand, they're letting that in. And then the next time they get a little better, and the next time they get a little better. And then after that, we bring in 2 people, and some person will say a shape and the other person will say a color. And then sometimes we'll have 3 people. And then when they're hitting, we'll also bring people in and have conversations like right behind them, 3 feet behind them, so that they have to concentrate on the pitch that they're looking for and not know what's going on behind them. So there's ways to train it. But at the 8, 9, 10-year-old age, you have to, tell them, look, this is what we're doing. I know you're your dad, and he's, every time you swing and miss, or there's a bad call or whatever it is. But you know what? You gotta learn how to tunnel this, and let's find a way to do it. So that's where we start the tunneling process, which is, we talked about that numerous times, from, Clear the Mechanism. Why am I not thinking of the book right now? Was that Revis's first book? Anyway, it was in For the Love of the Game, where it's just you and the catcher, or as a hitter, it's just you and the pitcher. Like you guys are in this tube, and everything else is, it's gray, right? It's just gray space. So, we try to teach them at a young age to try to get into that and learn that zone. And sometimes it starts with a silly game like that, like you play.
Mm-hmm. So, final point here, blocking out distractions, episode 92. I guess final question for you, make the final point. What are some of the most important elements of being successful in blocking out distractions over a 6-month season period of time?
Yeah. Know that you're going to have peaks and valleys throughout that 6 months, right? It's a long season. You're going to have days where you feel great. You can't miss. You can't get out. You're going to have weeks where you feel like that.
Oh yeah.
And
it's
then
going to look like a balloon up there, or a big beach ball.
Like
right.
Yeah. I mean, you're getting pitches. Most importantly, when we get hot, we're usually getting good pitches to hit. And a lot of times when we're in slumps, it's because we're not getting those pitches, right? Like strike one is right on the corner and you're like, damn, I'm 0-1 again. Yeah. And then strike two is a curveball down and away and you foul it off. And you're like, geez, I'm 0-2 again, Yeah. Where if you were in a hot streak, that first pitch on the corner would have been called a ball, or it would have missed by, a ball or two. And now all of a sudden you're sitting 1-0, you're sitting on a fastball, and then you get the fastball and you hit it. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times it's not the swing, you have to really go through those at bats and see, maybe why are we struggling these 10 at bats versus the last 10 at bats. So know that there's going to be a lot of peaks and valleys doing that. And with those valleys come outside distractions of your family.
Right.
Hey, geez, that wasn't a very good game. Or your girlfriend. I'm going to go out with somebody else that gets more hits.
Well, and nowadays with going out to bars and doing all, the girlfriend wants to do this and do that.
Yeah.
You got to find yourself a high quality woman, gentlemen.
Yeah. Like I'm going to stay in tonight. Like I'm not going out, but then you see on, TikTok, your lady friend was out, hey, who's that guy?
Right.
Hey, that's the guy tried to take my job.
That's a whole brand new element that's been introduced in the last however many years is social media now. And players sometimes can get antsy, athletes. I don't care how great they are, how dedicated they are, and seeing other peers having a good time without them.
The fear of missing out is
FOMO.
Not a good thing right now.
Yeah. So, I've noticed, I've learned in life though, that you shouldn't have a fear of missing out.
No.
You should live in the moment. In life.
Yeah, do you, right? Like, there's a reason you didn't want to partake in that, right?
Yes.
So stick to that reason, stick to your guns.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll have those distractions. The other distractions are, a coach say, hey, you should try this. You're having a rough at bat. You should move further away from the plate. You should do? You should open your stance up.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'd do? I'd add a leg kick. Or you have a teammate that says, I've kind of noticed that you've been doing this. Now all of a sudden you got like 4 people in your ear telling you, maybe you need to change something up. Maybe you do, but probably not. You change something up. These are all different outside influences. When if you have the proper coach that maybe sat down during those, 10 games, those 30 at bats, and said, here's why you were struggling. It wasn't because your stance wasn't open or your leg kick wasn't there. It was because look at how late you're moving now.
Mm-hmm.
You're moving a couple 100ths of a second later based on where the pitcher's hand is.
Yeah.
So what are you doing? Because now you got to rush. And now all of a sudden your stride's a little bit faster and you're not getting your hands back up to the launch position. They're here. So now we're not catching up to the fastball at the thighs, the top of the thighs of the belt. It's like, okay, there's the right problem. Not, hey, you should try this.
Mm-hmm.
Tie your shoes in a double knot. Maybe that'll bring you out of the slump.
Yeah.
So sometimes, we overlook some of the more obvious reasons why we're in a slump, which are maybe I'm just not getting the pitches I was getting last week. So you know what? I'm going to just make it simple. I'm going to look for that pitch on the outside corner. I'm going to take it away and I'm going to shoot a ball to right field. Now I'm going to feel good about myself, but I'm not going to try to hit a double in the left center field. If I'm a right-handed hitter, a double in the left center field gap.
Yeah.
Because I'm not getting those pitches right now.
Yeah.
So distractions can come from everything: coaches, family, friends, world events.
Yeah.
Baggage delays. I could keep going.
Stomach virus.
Yeah, that's a rough one.
Yeah.
Glad you're feeling better though, Jimmy. You look good.
Thank you.
Your color looks great.
Pepto-Bismol is a wonderful thing. I was in the grocery store Saturday, shopping, and man, I must have gone into the bathroom about 3 or 4 times praying that I wouldn't throw up, but I thought I was going to. I didn't, but I thought I was going to.
Yeah, no good.
Not fun. Next week,
On
Trevor
that note,
Story.
time for dinner, everyone.
Trevor Story next week, Mechanical Breakdown Series. We'll be discussing him, his career, his swing, et cetera, as we inch closer to episode number 100 coming very soon. We have a very special Mechanical Breakdown Series for episode 100. It's going to be a past player. We will announce that. I think we may have already, but we'll, in case you're not in tune to that, we'll catch you up at a later date. It'll be a little bit of a surprise, but it'll be a fun one. Episode 100. But next week, episode 93, Mechanical Breakdown Series, Trevor Story. What do you got coming up at the lab, Epper Pepper?
Oh, we had a good spring break. I just flew back today, actually. So we had a good spring break at the lab. A lot of mini camps, guys getting ready for kickoff here next week. Now that the season is really pounding underway. So, yeah, nothing special. Just keeping guys in season. Like our high school guys are in season, so getting a scouting report from their high school coaches on who they're going to see. We like to work with the high school coaches to figure out, hey, are your players, who's having what problems? Here's the list of guys that are hitting at the lab. What are they doing? You see them on a daily basis. Oh, this guy's swinging under a lot of pitches. Okay, check. Let's go ahead and get him worked out. This guy, might be chasing breaking balls when he's okay. Let's have a conversation with him. So we're doing a lot of that right now since they are in season, and then prepping them. Hey, we'll ask the coaches, what are you going to see this weekend? Or on Friday, are you going to see velocity? Or are you going to see more of a breaking ball guy? And then we set up, the cages accordingly. So that's what we're doing in the lab.
All right. So for more information, log on to the Lab BCS, of course, labbcs.com. And we will talk to you. That's it. We're done. Mechanical Breakdown Series next week. Trevor Story. We will talk to you next week, everybody. Have a great week. Take care.